Trump alla Francia, non abbiamo bisogno di voi. La Nazionale Francese debutta ai Mondiali FIFA e Trump minaccia 100% di tassa sui vini francesi. Benvenuti al notiziario di Radio Inizia e Centrale Milano per martedì 16 giugno 2026. Su Francia oggi in podcasting tramite chatbot AI e sulle onde medie di 1575 kcl, oggi perfettamente in buona forma. In redazione Marco Barsotti, da Parigi Rachel Costa e il presidente statunitense Donald Trump è arrivato lunedì a Evian, di fronte al lago di Ginevra, per partecipare, anzi sul lago di Ginevra, di fronte a Ginevra, per partecipare al vertice del G7, dopo aver siglato un accordo con l'Iran che, secondo gli ambasciatori di Washington, dovrebbe consentire la riapertura totale dello stretto di Hormuz entro venerdì. In un breve scambio con il presidente Emmanuel Macron, Trump ha minimizzato l'iniziativa congiunta di Parigi e Londra, volta a impegnare forze multinazionali per bonificare e mettere in sicurezza il passaggio strategico. Non credo avremmo bisogno di molto aiuto, ha affermato, aggiungendo che un paio di navi di qualche paese non farebbero male, il vostro paese sarebbe molto adatto perché non si sa mai. Ricordiamo che Macron aveva proposto di mandare la sua porta aerei francese Charles de Gaulle quando sarebbe finita la guerra, cioè quando non sarebbe stato probabilmente più molto utile. Macron dal canto suo ha ribadito la disponibilità della Francia a intervenire, sottolineando che la porta aerei Charles de Gaulle potrebbe essere schierata nella zona entro 2 o 3 giorni se gli Stati Uniti o l'Iran dovessero dare il via libera. Trump ha però lasciato intendere che la presenza di 1 o 2 battelli come quelli del Lago Maggiore sarebbe più che sufficiente, pur riconoscendo implicitamente l'importanza di un supporto internazionale. Noi consigliamo di mandare invece un bel aliscafo. E sempre Trump minaccia i vini francesi con dazi doganali. Donald Trump ha nuovamente puntato i riflettori sui vini francesi, minacciando di applicare dazi doganali al 100% se la Francia non abbandonerà la tassa sui grandi servizi digitali. Dal suo ritorno a Washington a gennaio 2025, il presidente americano ha lanciato una serie di pressioni sui vini tricolori francesi, che rappresentano più del 20% delle esportazioni francesi negli States. Dopo aver annunciato una prima proposta dei dazi a 200% a marzo, in risposta alle sanzioni europee su acciaio e alluminio, la minaccia è stata poi temperata. A aprile il presidente ha promesso un blocco dei dazi per 90 giorni, riducendolo in 10%, prima di posticipare l'entrata in vigore di un mese. L'accordo commerciale siglato da Bruxelles e Washington a fine luglio ha fissato i dazi sul vino europeo al 15%, ma non esenta i produttori francesi, lasciando comunque una pressione significativa sul settore. Nel frattempo, i dati della Federazione degli esportatori di vini e spumanti, FEFS, mostrano un calo del volume delle esportazioni verso gli USA dell'8,6% nel 2025 rispetto all'anno precedente, con una perdita di valore del 19%. Sono dati relativi a un periodo in cui questi dazi non c'erano, quindi c'entrano come i cavoli a merendare. Il prezzo medio di un ettolitro di vino francese destinato al mercato statunitense è sceso a 1.416 euro a gennaio 2025 e è arrivato a 1.035 a maggio 2026, riflettendo le fluttuazioni valutarie e incertezze tariffarie. È la prima volta che sentiamo parlare di prezzo del vino a ettolitro, soprattutto per i vini di gran pregio. Comunque il presidente Macron ha difeso la decisione di mantenere la tassa digitale, quella verso gli America, ricordando che si tratta di una normativa europea e che gli Stati Uniti non hanno giurisdizione su di essa. Il presidente FEFS, che si chiama Picard, ha condannato le minacce con una cattiva notizia per la filiera fortemente orientata all'export, auspicando che i prossimi colloqui allentino le tensioni. E su questo fatto, prima di passare alla nazionale francese che debutta questa sera, grandissima attesa qui in Francia, prima di passare a questo, diamo la parola a Rachel.
Vini sotto assedio, o la tariffa che l'Europa si è meritata. Eccoci di nuovo al tavolo delle grandi tensioni transatlantiche, dove il vino francese rischia di pagare il conto di anni di provocazioni europee. Donald Trump ha rimesso i riflettori sui dazi 100% sui vini tricolori se Parigi non ritira la tassa sui grandi servizi digitali. Brutale? Forse. Chi può davvero dargli torto? Da quando è rientrato alla Casa Bianca, Trump ha semplicemente deciso di rispondere con la stessa moneta a un'Europa che non perde. Occasione per ostacolare gli Stati Uniti nell'high tech e in quasi ogni settore strategico. Famigerata tassa GAFA Google, Amazon, Facebook. Solo l'esempio più lampante è un'imposta pensata su misura per colpire le aziende americane che dominano l'innovazione digitale. Mentre l'Europa continua a produrre regolamenti soffocanti a GDPR, DMA, DSA, che penalizzano proprio chi crea valore e posti di lavoro veri. Non è un caso isolato. L'Europa blocca o rallenta da anni gli interessi americani dai sussidi Airbus che hanno danneggiato Boeing, alle barriere normative contro gli OGM e le tecnologie innovative, fino alle sanzioni secondarie e alle pretese di regolamentare il mondo tech a proprio vantaggio. Nel frattempo pretende il libero accesso al mercato americano. Un gioco da furbi, protezionismo mascherato da virtù progressista. Ai vini francesi, che esportano oltre il 20% della loro produzione negli USA, si ritrovano ora nel mezzo di una partita che loro non hanno scelto. Ma la responsabilità è di chi a Bruxelles e a Parigi ha passato anni a punzecchiare alla. Più importante invece di cercare accordi seri. Sta semplicemente usando lo strumento che l'Europa capisce meglio, il linguaggio del potere economico. La nostra redazione, non possiamo che constatare l'evidenza quando l'Europa sceglie sistematicamente di ostacolare la innovazione americana invece di competere ad armi pari. Non può poi stupirsi se Washington risponde con dazi mirati. Il vino è solo il messaggio. Forse è arrivato il momento che Parigi e Bruxelles ne smettono di fare la morale e iniziano a negoziare da adulti. Altrimenti il sapore di queste bottiglie diventerà sempre più amaro. E la colpa non sarà di Trump. Con del giorno. Monaco chiese a Zhao: Maestro, il vino francese ha la natura di Buddha o no? Rispose Zhao: sì. Il monaco insistette: allora perché Trump lo colpisce con dazi così pesanti? Rispose Zhao: perché il vino sa di essere vino e non si piega facilmente. Per questo attira il bastone. Un'altra volta il monaco chiese a Zhao: Maestro, il vino francese ha la natura di Buddha o no? No, rispose Zhao. Ma tutti i beni hanno valore nel commercio. Perché il vino francese viene punito? Rispose Zhao: perché sta imparando la lezione. L'impermanenza oggi è pregiato, domani diventa dazio. Solo chi accetta il colpo senza lamentarsi può continuare a invecchiare bene. Ma torniamo alle notizie. Welcome to the news bulletin of Radio Nizza and Central Milan for Tuesday, June 16, 2026 on France Today. Com, in podcasting, via AI chatbot, and on medium waves at 1575 kHz. In the editorial office in Nice, Marco Hugo Barsati. From Paris, this is Rachel Costa. News from France arrival at the G7 summit. Donald Trump downplays the Paris and London multilateral initiative to secure the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump arrived on Monday, June 15 in Evian to attend the G7 summit, shortly after signing an agreement with Iran that, according to Washington ambassadors, should allow the full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz by Friday. In a brief exchange with French President Emmanuel Macron, Trump downplayed the joint Paris and London initiative aimed at committing multinational forces to clean up and secure the strategic passage. I don't think we'll need much help, he said, adding that a couple of ships from some country wouldn't hurt. Your country would be very suitable, because you never know. Macron, for his part, reiterated France's willingness to intervene, emphasizing that the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle could be deployed in the area within 2 or 3 days if the United States and Iran were to give the green light. Trump, however, hinted that the presence of 1 or 2 boats would be more than enough, while implicitly acknowledging the importance of international support. Note: the article is based on information provided by France Info and AFP. Fact check by Gemma. For Trump again threatens French wines with tariffs. Since returning to the White House, the president is playing with producers' nerves. Donald Trump has again put the spotlight on French wines, threatening to apply a 100% customs duty if France does not abandon the tax on large digital services. Since his return to Washington in January 2025, the American president has launched a series of pressures on the tricolor wines, which represent more than 20% of French exports to the United States. After announcing an initial tariff proposal of 200% in March in response to European sanctions on steel and aluminum, the threat was later moderated. In April, the president promised a freeze on tariffs for 90 days, reducing them to 10% before postponing their implementation by a month. A trade agreement signed between Brussels and Washington at the end of July set tariffs on European wine at 15%, but does not exempt French producers, still leaving significant pressure on the sector. Meanwhile, data from the Federation of Wine and Sparkling Wine Exporters, FIVs, show a decline in export volume to the USA of 8.6% in 2025 compared to the previous year, with a loss of value of almost 19%. The average price of a hectoliter of French wine destined for the US market fell from 1,416 in January 2025 to 1,035 in May 2026, reflecting currency fluctuations and tariff uncertainties. President Emmanuel Macron defended the decision to keep the digital tax, reminding that it is a European regulation and that the United States has no jurisdiction over it. The president of FEVs, Gabriel Picard, condemned the threats as more bad news for a supply chain strongly oriented toward export, hoping that the upcoming talks will ease tensions. In summary, the episode shows that, despite provisional agreements, French wine producers remain suspended between historic supplies and potential tariff obstacles imposed by Washington. Context note: the article was published on June 16, 2026 on BFM Business. Fact check by Gemma 4. And before talking about the French national team debuting today at the World Cup, great anticipation here in France today, we give the floor to Rachel. Good morning from Paris. I am Rachel Costa. I will read you my editorial of the day. Rachel's editorial: Wines Under Siege, or the tariff that Europe deserved. Here we are again at the table of great transatlantic tensions, where French wine risks paying the price for years of European provocations. Donald Trump has put the spotlight back on tariffs. 100% on tricolor wines if Paris does not withdraw the tax on large digital services. Brutal? Maybe, but who can really blame him? Since returning to the White House, Trump has simply decided to respond in kind to a Europe that never misses an opportunity to hinder the United States in high-tech and almost every strategic sector. The notorious GAFA tax, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, is just the most striking example. A levy designed to hit American companies that dominate digital innovation, while Europe continues to produce stifling regulations, GDPR, DMA, DSA, that penalize precisely those who create real value and jobs. It is not an isolated case. Europe has been blocking or slowing American interests for years. From Airbus subsidies that have harmed Boeing, to regulatory barriers against GMOs and innovative technologies, to secondary sanctions and claims to regulate the tech world to its own advantage. Meanwhile, it demands free access to the American market. A clever game. Protectionism masked as progressive virtue. French winemakers, who export more than 20% of their production to the USA, now find themselves in the middle of a game they did not choose. But the responsibility lies with those in Brussels and Paris who have spent years poking the most important ally instead of seeking serious agreements. Trump is simply using the tool that Europe understands best: the language of economic power. From our editorial office, we can only note the evidence. When Europe systematically chooses to hinder American innovation instead of competing on equal footing, it cannot then be surprised if Washington responds with targeted tariffs. Wine is just the messenger. Perhaps it is time for Paris and Brussels to stop moralizing and start negotiating as adults. Otherwise, the taste of these bottles will become increasingly bitter, and the fault will not be Trump's. Koan of the day. A monk asked Zhao Zhou, "Master, does French wine have the nature of Buddha or not?" Zhao Zhou replied, "Yes." The monk persisted. "Then why does Trump hit it with such heavy tariffs?" Zhao Zhou replied, "Because the wine knows it is wine and does not bend easily. That's why it attracts the stick." Another time a monk asked Zhao Zhou, "Master, does French wine have the nature of Buddha or not?" "No," Zhao Zhou replied, "but all goods have value in trade. Why is French wine punished?" Zhao Zhou replied, "Because it is learning the lesson of impermanence. Today it is prized. Tomorrow it becomes a tariff. Only those who accept the blow without complaining can continue to age well." But let's return to the news. 2026 World Cup. France launches against Senegal in its first match. Didier Deschamps' French national team kicks off the tournament in the group stage, meeting the Lions of Teranga in a match scheduled for Tuesday, June 16 at 21:00 local time. at MetLife Stadium in New York after the inaugural defeat against Senegal in the 2002 World Cup. The Blues are determined not to repeat the same mistake against Sadio Mane and his teammates, who have shown high ambitions in their preparation. The match marks France's official debut in the North American competition, which will be played in 4 groups. In Group I, Norway will face Iraq on the night between Tuesday and Wednesday, while in that window Russia is out of this tournament. Argentina, the reigning champion of 2022, will launch the title defense against Algeria, with its captain Lionel Messi ready to repeat the feats of a recent era. In Group H, Spain suffered a surprise against Cape Verde, demonstrating that the competition is open and unpredictable. Deschamps, in the pre-match press conference, emphasized respect for the opponent. On the field, we face a very beautiful team with all the qualities required by top-level football. France, with Kylian Mbappe still at the center of media attention, seeks to reaffirm its role as a favorite, while aware of the pressure of overcoming the historic weight of a difficult opening match. The match will be broadcast live on the main national channels and can also be followed online, with continuous updates on the official website of the French France Info, which will provide live tweets and real-time analysis. Context note: the article draws on information provided by the French news service France Info, published on June 16, 2026 at 0554, and synthesizes the main points of interest for the Italian audience. Fact check by Gemma 4. Welcome to the International News Bulletin from Radio Nizza and Central Milan for Tuesday, June 16, 2026 on France Today. Com in podcasting and on medium waves at 1575 kHz. From Paris, this is Rachel Costa. Trump announces the full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump declared during the G7 summit in Evian that the Strait of Hormuz will once again be free of ship traffic starting Friday. The promise follows the signing of a new framework agreement between Washington and Tehran, which aims to end hostilities in the region. Trump emphasized that the measure will renew the commercial flow of oil, reducing pressure on global energy markets. International observers received the news cautiously, noting that actual implementation will depend on a delicate verification process and compliance with nuclear non-proliferation terms. Meanwhile, maritime operators have already begun to reorganize routes, while oil companies anticipate a gradual return of export volumes. Global stock markets back the U.S.-Iran deal. Yesterday afternoon, U.S. stock futures remained broadly stable, while the Asian market closed higher after the news of the new U.S.-Iran agreement. The Nikkei 2025 index reached a historic high, driven by improving oil prices and the prospect of reduced geopolitical tensions. The Dow Jones also recorded a modest gain, reflecting investors' enthusiasm for the potential normalization of trade. Analysts highlighted that, despite the remaining uncertainties regarding implementation, the reduced perception of risk contributed to a slight market recovery. However, they also warned that any delays or political disputes could reignite volatility in the coming days. Bank of Japan raises rate to 1%, the highest since 1995. The Bank of Japan announced a rise in interest rates to 1%, the first such increase since the early 1990s. The decision was motivated by rising inflation, driven by the strong appreciation of the yen in international markets. With this move, Japanese authorities aim to curb pressure on consumer prices and stabilize the national currency. Economists noted that the new rate could impact capital flows to Japan, making yen-denominated investments more attractive. At the same time, the measure could affect financing costs for companies in a still uncertain economic growth context. SpaceX records the largest IPO in history, raises $7 billion. SpaceX's initial public offering closed with a record raise, surpassing $85 billion thanks to the activation of the oversubscription option. The listing generated huge interest from retail and institutional investors, driven by the company's ambitions in the space launch sector and the upcoming Starlink satellite network. Analysts highlighted that the newly raised capital will allow SpaceX to accelerate the development of new reusable launch vehicles and expand global internet coverage. However, they also warned about the risk of dependence on government contracts and the competitive pressure in the space exploration market. Venture capital invests $300 million in generative artificial intelligence startup. A major venture capital fund announced a $300 million investment in a European startup specializing in generative artificial intelligence. The company, founded by academic researchers, develops advanced models capable of creating textual and visual content from short prompts, aiming to revolutionize digital media production. The capital injection will strengthen computational capabilities, expand the research team, and launch new integrations with commercial platforms. Industry experts noted that this investment marks a growing trend toward the commercialization of AI technologies capable of automating creative processes, with potential impacts on advertising, entertainment, and design. Weather: Paris, Monaco, Monte Carlo, and Milan for Tuesday, June 16, 2026. Paris, transitional day with some rain showers. The morning presents a very cloudy sky with a few light showers. Temperatures hovering around 21 degrees with a northwest wind at 25 kilometers. In the afternoon, the sun peeks out, warming the air up to 29 degrees. The wind shifts east with gusts of 30 km/h and no precipitation is expected. In the evening, temperatures drop to 26 degrees. The sky remains clear with scattered clouds. The wind is again from the northwest at 30 kilometers. During the night, the minimum temperature reaches around 20 degrees. The sky is almost completely clear. The wind is weaker, 20 km/h from the north, with no rain risk. According to expert Regis Crepet, the conditions will be fairly stable, with a moderate UV index in the morning rising to high in the afternoon. It is advisable to have a light umbrella handy for the first part of the day. Monaco, Monte Carlo, shining sun and light breezes. At sunrise, the temperature is 22 degrees. The sky is clear with a few light clouds. The wind is almost calm, 15 km/h from the northwest, with no rain in sight. The afternoon brings the day's highest heat, reaching 26 degrees. The wind stays light from the southwest at 15 km/h, and the weather remains dry. Towards evening, the temperature drops to 23 degrees. The sky retains a light cloud cover. The wind increases to 20 km/h from the southwest, but precipitation remains nil. At night, the thermometer reads 21 degrees. The wind is very weak, 10 km/h from the west, while the sky is clear and there is no rain risk. The conditions are ideal for a promenade along the seafront or an outdoor dinner with a high but manageable UV index. The stability of the anticyclone guarantees a pleasantly tempered evening. Milan, sun with light east-southeast breezes. Milan's morning awakens under a predominantly partly cloudy sky. Temperature is 23 degrees. Wind is light, 4 km/h from east to northeast, and there is no trace of precipitation. The afternoon heats further, with temperatures reaching 31 degrees. Wind remains light but comes from east-southeast, while the sky stays mostly clear with some scattered veils. Evening temperature drops to 30 degrees. Wind is almost non-existent, 1 km/h from south-southeast, and the sky is clear, with no rain risk. During the night, the minimum temperature reaches 22 degrees. Wind is very weak, 1 km/h from the west, and the sky remains clear, with the UV index practically zero. According to expert Daniele Berlusconi of 3B Meteo, the day will be dominated by a stable high pressure, ideal for outdoor activities and enjoying Milanese sunsets. Weather editorial by Rachel. When the climate becomes the cloud of blame. It's curious how every temperature change or a drop of rain is immediately blamed on climate change. Wouldn't it be more logical to wonder why the refrigerator doesn't turn on when it's hot, or why our boss arrives late because of a cloud? Perhaps the only real mystery is some people's ability to turn a light breeze into a global catastrophe. If we continue down this path, we'll soon have to explain to our children why shoes have disappeared because of sea level rise. Con of the day, monk. The sun burns, but the wind caresses. Zhaozhou. The wind caresses, but the sun has already gone. And this is today's weather. Sign off. Online, on X and Mastodon, on all smart speakers, and on medium wave. This is Francia Aghi with Central Milano 1575 kHz. This is all for now. From the Paris newsroom, I'm Rachel Costa. This is Radio Nisa, Central Milano 1575 kHz.